Hey guys, tonight we're not just crawling into bed, we're crawling underground, into the soot-blackened veins of 1970s New York City. That's right, welcome to the brutal, absurd, and, somehow, hilarious life of a heroin addict making a home in the subway tunnels beneath Manhattan. Forget everything you think you know about rough living. This isn't just the rent's too high. This ceiling is made of rats and train dust. And your next-door neighbor is a guy called Cheddar Bob, who bathes in puddles and claims he invented disco. So before you cocoon yourself in clean sheets and central heating, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Because somewhere, it's always 2:15 a.m., and someone is eating stale pizza off a subway platform. Dim the lights. Switch on that fan for a hint of urban white noise and get comfortable. Maybe double-check your bed for stray subway rats, just for the ambiance. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered how people actually survive down there? Was there a secret tunnel society? Did they host underground raves? Or was it more like a rat wrestling league? Did anyone ever use a subway rat for warmth? Or were the rats the ones holding rent court? How did you brush your teeth? Did you? And how many days could you go without sunlight before you started seeing disco balls in the darkness? So congratulations. You've just woken up in 1977, deep under Manhattan. Your pillow is a rolled-up denim jacket. Your alarm clock is the 4 train thundering overhead, and you're pretty sure something just stole your shoe. Good luck. The first night is always the worst. You arrive in the subway tunnels with nothing but a paper bag, a thin blanket, and the vague hope that no one claims the spot under the third rail before you do. The air tastes like wet metal and old cigarettes, and every shadow looks like it might mug you for your sandwich. Welcome to your new home. Let's take a moment to appreciate just how far you've fallen. Yesterday, you were a citizen of the city. Maybe not thriving, maybe not even surviving that well, but at least you could pretend you belonged somewhere above ground. Now, as the last train screeches by overhead, you realize your pillow is whatever you managed to stuff into a stolen bodega bag. And your mattress is just New York's finest poured concrete, slightly warmed by the body heat of the guy who was here before you, who probably left you a present, and not the kind you want to unwrap. Your first lesson: location is everything. The experienced subway dwellers, let's call them the tunnel aristocracy, all have their favorite real estate. There's the guy who always gets the warm spot near the vent, the woman who somehow scored the only working overhead bulb, and the pair that commandeered an entire bench with a system of string, cardboard, and what might be hope. You're in the beginner zone, somewhere just far enough from the platform to avoid the cops, but close enough to still hear the announcements. Nothing says luxury like falling asleep to "Stand clear of the closing doors, please" on a loop. You try to get comfortable, but comfort in the subway is mostly theoretical. Every creak and rattle sounds like it's coming for you. Is that a rat? Or just the echo of your dignity scurrying away? You pull your thin blanket up to your chin, but the cold seeps in through every possible gap. If you ever wondered what it's like to be a forgotten French fry under a booth, congratulations, this is it. Of course, you're not alone. There's always someone wandering through, eyes wild and teeth chattering, looking for the next place to crash or the next unlucky soul to bother. Someone laughs in the darkness. It could be at a private joke, or it could be at you. In the tunnels, you learn fast. Mind your own business, and don't make eye contact with the guy wearing 2 hats and muttering about Nixon. He's got enough problems. Let's not forget the soundtrack. Above ground, people pay money for white noise machines and soothing rain sounds. Down here, you get the symphony for free. The distant shriek of brakes, the soft tap of dripping water, the hum of fluorescent lights about to die, and, somewhere in the distance, what you pray is just someone singing and not a raccoon opera. You try to sleep, but the concrete doesn't forgive, and neither does the anxiety gnawing at your ribs. Your mind races. How did you end up here? Was it really just one bad break, or was it the slow, invisible slide that started months ago when the world stopped making sense and started spinning on the axis of just one more day? Funny how the city above never noticed. Down here you're invisible, but at least you're among people who know what that feels like. At some point, your eyelids droop, your body gives up fighting, and you drift off, wrapped in exhaustion and city grime. In your sleep, you dream of sunlight and clean sheets, and maybe, just maybe, a sandwich no one tries to steal. But for now, you settle for the warmth of your own breath, and the knowledge that, somehow, you made it through the first night, barely. Tomorrow, you'll learn the real rules. Tonight, you just survive. And in the tunnels, that's as close to winning as it gets. It's mid-February, and outside, New York is pretending to be Siberia. Down here, the only thing between you and a popsicle ending is how creatively you can pile up cardboard and newspapers. Layering up is less fashion statement. More can I survive the night without losing a toe. You wouldn't think the city that never sleeps could get this cold. But apparently, the subway tunnels didn't get the memo. The cold is different down here. It isn't just an absence of warmth, it's an actual entity, a resentful spirit that slinks through the cracks and waits for you to get cocky. One minute you're thinking, hey, this spot's not so bad. And the next you're shivering so hard your teeth sound like castanets in a salsa band. This is where your education begins in the ancient subway survival art known as the cardboard shuffle. Veteran dwellers, the ones who look like they've been here since Nixon resigned, will tell you, never underestimate a triple-ply sheet of cardboard. It's not just trash. It's insulation, mattress, blanket, and occasional umbrella. If you're lucky enough to find an unsoiled piece, congratulations, you're now the proud owner of what counts as real estate down here. If not, well, it builds character, and possibly a rash. Now, about newspapers. Above ground, people use them to catch up on the Mets and line bird cages. Down here, they're the difference between waking up with frostbitten fingers or just feeling like you slept inside a walk-in freezer. Layering the headlines, today's disasters, yesterday's sports scores, over your chest, under your back, around your toes. Suddenly, you're swaddled in current events and ancient subway dust, and you realize the only thing more depressing than the New York Times is using it to keep your kidneys from freezing. Then there's the clothing situation. Subway chic means wearing everything you own, and if you're lucky, a few things you've borrowed from lost and found piles along the way. Socks over hands? Sure. T-shirt over hoodie over jacket over garbage bag? Absolutely. Scarves made from fraying dish towels? You're not making a statement, you're making a desperate plea to the gods of body heat. The fashion world may not appreciate your look, but at least you're still alive to be mocked by someone with actual gloves. Let's talk about toes for a second. In this underground world, your feet become the canaries in the coal mine. Once they go numb, it's a race against time. You curl up as tight as you can, an urban pretzel, and try to wedge your feet into your armpits. You pray for a warm draft from a passing train, or better yet, the magical hot spot above a steam pipe. Pro tip: if you find a warm grate, guard it with your life. Tunnel society might frown on violence, but everyone gets a little homicidal when their socks are freezing to the concrete. There are a few legendary methods whispered about in the depths. Some say smearing Vaseline on your skin helps trap warmth. Others believe sleeping next to a rat is worth it for the shared body heat. Desperate times, desperate measures. At some point, you realize. Down here, you'd hug a radiator, a stray dog, or even cheddar bob if it meant saving your fingers. But the cold is more than physical. It seeps into your thoughts, making every hope brittle. Your mind starts calculating things you never thought you'd consider. If I only move every 10 minutes, will I stay warmer? How many layers of pizza boxes before the cold gives up? Is this what penguins feel like, huddled on the ice? Maybe you're just a tuxedo away from Antarctic chic. Eventually, sleep sneaks up and grabs you. You dream of hot showers, down comforters, and, weirdly, Miami. When you wake, the cold has only shifted from biting to dull aching. But hey, you made it through another night with all your toes, probably. Subway survival isn't about comfort, it's about stubbornness, creativity, and a willingness to treat trash like treasure. In the art of not freezing to death, victory is waking up and realizing you're still shivering, not frozen solid. Breakfast isn't pancakes. It's whatever you can scrounge from the garbage, leftover pizza crust, or if you're lucky, a stale donut tossed from the uptown Q train. No one is judging you down here, unless you manage to find real orange juice. In which case, everyone suspects you're secretly a Rockefeller. Let's set the table, such as it is. The first meal of the day isn't so much the most important meal, as it is the one that didn't get eaten by a rat before you got to it. Above ground, people are arguing about whether avocado toast is overrated. But down here, the only debate is, would you eat half a hot dog if it still has a bite mark in it? Answer: it depends how hungry you are and how many people are watching. The gourmet experience starts early, usually right after sunrise, or whatever passes for sunrise, when your only light comes from the flicker of a dying fluorescent bulb. The first step is the daily forage, a meditative walk along the edge of the platforms, scanning for unclaimed treasures. Some mornings, you luck out. A whole slice of pizza, maybe only stepped on twice. Other days, you're left with a crust so hard it could double as a weapon. For the truly daring, there's the mystical vending machine jackpot, when some distracted commuter forgets their snack and walks away. Finding an unopened bag of Cheetos is the Subway equivalent of winning the lottery. Unfortunately, it happens about as often. But there's an etiquette to all of this. Tunnel society has its own unspoken rules, and breakfast is a social minefield. You don't take food off someone else's table, red pile of belongings. You don't ask where someone found their mysterious can of tuna, unless you're prepared to swap for it. And whatever you do, don't get caught boasting about a good haul. Food envy is real, and nothing stirs up trouble faster than showing off a pastry with actual icing. Then there's the creative side. Sometimes breakfast is less about what you found and more about what you can invent. Old ketchup packets become tomato soup. Half a bagel, some cheese from last night, and a single slice of bologna. That's an artisanal breakfast sandwich, Subway edition. For those who plan ahead, there's the hobo stove, a can with holes poked in it, just big enough for a candle and a small pot. Warm soup is a luxury. But if you can manage it, you're basically running a 5-star bistro down here. Hygiene is, to put it gently, optional. Washing your hands before eating is a distant memory, replaced by the shake and blow method. Shake off the worst of the grime, blow on it for luck, and hope your immune system is feeling ambitious. If you want to feel fancy, wipe your finds with a napkin, assuming you have one that isn't older than Nixon's resignation. Salt packets and sugar pilfered from the surface world are traded like gold. The Holy Grail? Real coffee. Most mornings, though, you settle for a cup of something brown that may or may not have started its life as actual coffee beans. And yet, for all its grimness, breakfast underground has a kind of camaraderie. You share what you can. if only because you know how desperate tomorrow might be. Tunnel dwellers cluster together, swapping stories and bites of food, turning a scavenged meal into a group ritual. There's laughter, there's gossip, and, if you're lucky, somebody remembers a joke clean enough to repeat before noon. If you're wondering about nutrition, well, let's just say the recommended daily allowances don't stand a chance. Some days you get all carbs, others all sugar. And if you get a piece of fruit that isn't already fermenting, you might as well be eating at the Four Seasons. But calories are calories, and down here, it's less about clean eating and more about still breathing. As the morning hustle above ground picks up, you finish your meal, brush off the crumbs, or maybe pocket them for later, and get ready to face another day in the depths. No eggs Benedict, no bottomless mimosas, just the stubborn hope that lunch might be a little less chewy, and that tonight's dinner isn't staring back at you when you find it. Subway tunnels aren't empty. There's a full cast of characters: grizzled Vietnam vets, philosophers who argue with rats, and someone called Tunnel Elvis. There are unspoken rules, number one being, don't steal Cheddar Bob's shopping cart if you want to keep your fingers. The first thing you notice about tunnel life isn't the darkness, the smell, or even the trains, it's the people. Above ground, you can get lost in the crowd, but below, everyone gets noticed. Every soul down here is a story in motion, some epic, some cautionary, and a few you'd swear are works of fiction brought to life by stray fumes and urban loneliness. Let's start with the tunnel elders. These are the survivors who've been living below for so long. The rats nod to them in passing. There's Big Jim, who claims he was at Woodstock and is not afraid to list every band he almost saw. There's Miss Jackie, who can recite all of Shakespeare, badly, and usually with modern updates involving subway tokens and pigeons. These folks set the tone, and more importantly, enforce the code. Step out of line, and you'll get a lecture, a glare, or, if you really mess up, an overnight exile to the 2nd Avenue spur, which is, frankly, the basement's basement. Then there are the philosophers. They're not hard to spot. One guy sits cross-legged, debating the finer points of existentialism with a rat named General Patton. Another holds court beneath a flickering bulb, explaining the meaning of life to anyone unlucky enough to make eye contact. It's a heady mix of street wisdom and genuine madness, with just enough humor to keep you listening longer than you meant to. And of course, there's Tunnel Elvis. No one knows his real name. Some say he was a lounge singer. Others think he just really likes sequins and peanut butter sandwiches. Every week, he stages a one-man concert for an audience of bored commuters, bemused tunnel residents, and the occasional transit cop. His rendition of Blue Suede Shoes echoes off the tile in ways even Elvis never dreamed. He's not half bad. He's also not half sober. It's part of the charm. But don't let the quirky characters fool you. Tunnel society is serious business. There are rules, most of them unwritten, all of them enforced. Rule number 1. Never take Cheddar Bob's shopping cart. Cheddar Bob is not actually named for his love of cheese, but for his uncanny ability to barter anything for a block of government cheddar. His cart is both his bank account and his kingdom. Touch it, and you'll wake up with fewer teeth than you started with. Rule number 2. Always respect sleep zones. Nothing will get you banished faster than waking someone up mid-nap, unless it's an actual fire. Even then, you'd better be sure it's not just someone's warming barrel. Communication down here is an art. Above ground, people shout. In the tunnels, voices are softer, partly because echoes get you noticed, partly because everyone's a little suspicious. Gossip moves at lightning speed. Someone once tried to start a book club. It fell apart when the only available book was last year's phone directory. Now, News is shared in whispers, sideways glances, and, if something truly dramatic happens, a collective, drawn-out sigh. Privacy is an illusion, and everyone knows more about your business than you do. Your first night, people clock your shoes, your blanket, even your hair. New kid from uptown, looks like he might last a week. By day 3, you've been folded into the collective memory, a nod here, a muttered greeting there. By day 10, you're part of the scenery. You've got your own corner and a mental map of who to avoid, who to trust, and who to trade your extra socks to for an actual story. Some say tunnel society is just chaos with more rats. But once you learn the rhythms, the rules, and the characters, it's clear, down here, you're never alone. Not for a second. Even if sometimes you wish you were. Getting heroin isn't as glamorous as Hollywood suggests. It's more waiting for hours in a damp stairwell, nervously eyeing everyone, hoping the guy who shows up isn't an undercover cop or your cousin. The real challenge? Remembering if you already spent your last $5 or if you just dreamed it. Let's talk about the hunt. Because that's what it is, hunting. Not for deer, not for treasure, not for the meaning of life. Just for a tiny bag of powder that might be heroin, might be baby laxatives, and might be something that makes you see God for 8 seconds and then collapse like a puppet with its strings cut. It's the 1970s in New York, and the city's got 3 things in endless supply: garbage, disco, and a heroin pipeline so wide it could probably be designated as a landmark. You start the day with that familiar ache in your bones. It's not hunger exactly. It's deeper than hunger. Hunger is civilized. Hunger is something you can solve with a sandwich. This is the kind of need that makes your brain turn into a single blinking neon sign that just says now. And the cruel part is, you know the routine. You could probably do it blindfolded, which is convenient because half the time you basically are. The first step is figuring out how to get money. That's the part no one puts in movies. They skip it because it's not sexy watching you count pennies under a flickering street lamp like you're doing advanced calculus. But down here, the hustle is the real full-time job. You panhandle. You barter. You borrow things from above ground that somehow become yours. You scrape together whatever you can. Because heroin doesn't accept goodwill or emotional intentions. It wants cash. Then comes the navigation. You don't just stroll into a store and buy it. This isn't a bodega transaction. This is a scavenger hunt run by paranoia. You head toward the spots people whisper about. Corners where bodies linger too long. Stairwells that smell like urine and burnt cigarettes. Little pockets of the city where everyone's pretending they're not there, even though they're very there. And you wait. You wait like you're waiting for a bus that never comes, except this bus might arrest you. The stairwell is damp, the walls sweat. Somewhere a pipe drips rhythmically, like it's counting down your patience. You keep shifting your weight, trying to look casual, which is hilarious because no one has ever looked casual waiting for drugs. Your eyes scan faces, hands, jackets, movements. Every passing stranger could be a dealer or a cop or worse. A guy who wants your $5 and doesn't plan to exchange it for anything except a punch to the ribs. You check your pocket again. Still $5. Still real. Still not imaginary. You've had nights where you were convinced you had money, only to discover you'd already spent it 2 hours ago, possibly on something that didn't work. Or possibly on nothing at all. Addiction turns time into soup. You can't tell if it's been 10 minutes or 3 hours. You can't tell if you ate today. You can't tell if you're wearing the same shirt as yesterday, or if the shirt just permanently fused to your body like a shame sweater. Finally, the guy appears. Or maybe it's not the guy. Maybe it's a teenager. Maybe it's someone your age who looks twice as old. Maybe it's someone you recognize from 3 tunnels ago. That's the weird thing about New York. You can lose yourself in the crowd above ground, but in the underground ecosystem, you keep running into the same ghosts. The exchange is fast, no eye contact, no greetings, no how's the weather, just hands. A crumpled bill, a small folded bag. Sometimes there's a code word, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes you get what you paid for, sometimes you get powdered disappointment. And then comes the real moment, the retreat. You don't do it right there. Not unless you want an audience, or a robbery, or both. You head back down into the tunnels with your prize tucked away like it's sacred. Because in this world, it kind of is. You move quickly, heart pounding, not from excitement, but from fear. Fear of cops, fear of getting jumped, fear of dropping it, fear of it being fake, fear of it being real. And yet as you reach your spot underground, crouching in the dim, grimy light, you feel something close to relief, not happiness, not peace. Just the temporary loosening of that iron grip in your chest. You did it. You chased the dragon again, and the dragon, as usual, doesn't love you back. Your decorating options are salvaged milk crate and festive pile of trash. Still, people get creative. Some string up fairy lights stolen from above ground. Others paint murals with whatever's handy. Martha Stewart, eat your heart out. Let's face it, the subway tunnel isn't exactly a blank canvas. It's already decorated by the city, peeling paint, graffiti layered on graffiti, and mysterious substances oozing from corners you hope are just water. But even the deepest darkness can't fully kill the human urge to nest. So you do what every city dweller does. You make the most of what you've got, even if what you've got is technically hazardous waste. First, the walls. Blank concrete is bleak, so a little color goes a long way. Some folks manage to acquire a spray paint can or two and set to work creating what can only be described as psychedelic cave art. Portraits of subway rats with halos, cartoons of cops chasing pizzas, a mural dedicated entirely to different shapes of mold. If you're artistically challenged, don't worry. Even a smiley face in black marker is considered high-end decor. Just be sure to leave a spot for the inevitable graffiti artist turf war, a proud tunnel tradition. Flooring is, let's say, rustic. Carpeting is whatever cardboard you can rescue before it turns to mush. Layer it, tape it down, hope the corner doesn't curl up and trip you in the middle of the night. A lucky few might find a battered bath mat or a discarded piece of shag rug, which they treat with the reverence of a Persian heirloom. Nothing says home like the faint smell of bleach and mildew. Seating is where true innovation shines. The milk crate is the undisputed king of tunnel furniture, versatile, stackable, and strong enough to survive a direct hit from a runaway shopping cart. If you find one, you're basically living in luxury. Stacked crates become bookcases. Laid flat, they're beds for anyone under 5'7". Throw in a few cushions, and you've got a lounge area that says, "I'm not dead yet." For those with a knack for salvage, tunnel decor sometimes reaches impressive heights. An abandoned umbrella becomes a makeshift lampshade. A subway map, once dried out, is wallpaper, curtains, or, in a pinch, extra insulation. Broken mirrors reflect the glimmer of a pilfered flashlight, and old t-shirts are draped for that shabby chic look. You haven't really lived until you've seen a nightstand made from a cinder block and an out-of-date phone book. Now, let's talk about lighting. Actual electricity is rare. But where there's a will, there's a workaround. Some folks lift string lights from street fairs or dumpster dive for discarded Christmas lights. You power them with whatever battery pack you can scrounge, maybe even a mysterious extension cord plugged into an outlet labeled "Don't Touch." The result? A tunnel palace that glows like Studio 54. If Studio 54 was underground and regularly flooded, no home would be complete without some personal touches. Photos, lucky coins, a plastic flower in a bottle, or that one comic book you've been reading for 6 months. You arrange your treasures where you can see them. Reminders that you're still human. Still yourself, even if your living room's ceiling occasionally rains mineral water. Above your spot, maybe you've even hung a piece of art, a crayon drawing left by a lost kid, or a New Year's noisemaker still miraculously working. Sure, Martha Stewart never had to fend off rats or battle Cheddar Bob for a prime piece of linoleum. But down here, every small victory, a pillow that isn't soaked, a blanket that doesn't smell like feet, is a sign you haven't given up. Your home might be temporary, improvised, and occasionally condemned by the health department, but it's yours. And when you finally sit back on your crate, feet propped on a stack of weathered newspapers, twinkle lights overhead, and a mural of disco rats on the wall, you realize you've done the impossible. You've made a home in a place designed to make you feel like you don't belong. Cozy? Maybe not. But in the tunnels, cozy is a state of mind. And tonight, you've got just enough to keep you dreaming. No segment about the subway would be complete without rats. Down here, they're not just rodents. They're property managers, emotional support animals, and sometimes, regrettably, dinner companions. The real question: who's more afraid, you or the rats? Let's get one thing straight. If you're living in the tunnels, you are living in their world. New York rats are not the shy, skittery type. They don't flinch. They don't run. Some of them look you straight in the eye, and you get the sense they're weighing up your value as a tenant, maybe as a snack. Some are the size of house cats, others are more modest, travel-sized, if you will. The bravest among them march around with missing tails and scars. The battle-worn landlords of this subterranean kingdom. The first few nights, you're convinced you can outwit them. You carefully stash your food in old coffee cans, tie your bag with 4 knots, and tuck your socks deep inside your shoes. But rats are like tiny, furry locksmiths. You wake up and find your stash nibbled, your socks relocated, and, if they're feeling really bold, one rat making itself comfortable right on your pillow. If you had any illusions about maintaining boundaries, the rats will disabuse you of those quickly. It doesn't take long to realize that the rats have their own society down here. They've got routines. There's the early morning crew that does the rounds for leftover pizza crust. The late-night shift that raids the trash bags after most humans are asleep. And then there are the fixers, the old, wise rats who seem to mediate disputes between their juniors and you. If you see 2 rats squared off in the middle of the tunnel, give them space. They're settling something, and trust me, you don't want to referee. After a while, the line between house guest and house pet blurs. Some people name the regulars Blacktail, Scarface, Mrs. Chubbs. You try to coexist. Some tunnel dwellers swear rats can sense your mood. Feeling low? Here comes a rat to sniff your hand and offer moral support, or to check if you're holding a granola bar. Some claim you can train them with bits of cracker, though mostly it's the other way around. You become trained to feed them, if only to keep the peace. Of course, it's not all adorable urban wildlife documentaries. There's a reason New Yorkers are experts at the rat leap, that little hop you do when one darts across your path. Sometimes you wake up to the pitter-patter of rat feet racing across your blanket. Other times, you find a rat halfway through your carefully curated breakfast of champions. There are horror stories, shoes chewed to ribbons, garbage bags shredded, one guy who woke up to find a rat trying to steal his tooth fillings. No one is sure if that one's true, but it's enough to make you sleep with your mouth shut. And then there's the moment you wonder, Who's really in charge here? You might have claimed this patch of floor, but the rats have been here longer. They know the secret passages, the warmest vents, the best hiding spots when the cops come through. If you're looking for wisdom, ask an old-timer. If you're looking for survival tips, watch the rats. They're resourceful, unbothered, and have zero respect for personal property. In many ways, they're living the New York dream. There are nights when hunger wins and morals blur. It's an unwritten rule. Don't ask about the mystery meat if you get offered stew in the tunnels. Some folks swear they'd never, ever eat a rat. Others just shrug and say, "It's protein." In a world where the line between roommate and dinner can get as fuzzy as a rat's tail, you learn not to judge. But maybe, just maybe, you and the rats have an understanding. You don't bother them. They don't bring their cousins. You share the warmth, the scraps, and, if you're feeling philosophical, a grudging respect. After all, down here, you're both just doing your best to survive. Cash is great, but most commerce runs on barter. Trade cigarettes for a lighter, socks for a can of beans, or a good story for someone's spare spoon. Inflation? It's when Cheddar Bob decides socks are now worth 3 cigarettes instead of 2. Let's be clear. The US Treasury is not printing money for tunnel dwellers. Down here, paper bills come and go. But value is built on desperation and creativity. There's a whole shadow economy operating under the streets. Equal parts flea market, stock exchange, and improv theatre. Above ground, Wall Street traders shout into phones. Below, you bargain in whispers, huddled over a milk crate counter, praying nobody overhears your best deal of the day. The first thing you notice is how quickly priorities shift. Above ground, a sock is just a sock. Down here, it's gold. Warm feet mean the difference between sleeping and becoming a cautionary tale. If you've got 2 decent pairs, congratulations, you're basically the Warren Buffett of the tunnels. A working lighter is a minor miracle, worth a week's worth of IOUs, and not to be wasted on anything less than a real smoke or emergency candlelight. It's a system that runs on favors and inventory, not receipts and ledgers. The classic trade, cigarettes for a can of food. The trick is always knowing what's in demand. If it's winter, blankets go for a king's ransom, layers, mittens. Even a half-clean scarf can fetch you a warm drink or a full plate of something, possibly edible. In the summer, water and batteries become currency, traded with the seriousness usually reserved for high-stakes poker. And then there's the snack hustle. A bag of chips, rescued from a station trash can before the rats, is split up and traded like precious gemstones. 3 potato chips for a pencil. A stick of gum for a story. Tunnel Elvis once managed to barter a single cherry cough drop for an entire evening's worth of flashlight time. Nobody knows how. But that's why he's called the king. The barter system isn't just about goods, either. Skills matter. If you know how to fix a radio, roll a perfect cigarette, or patch up a cut with whatever's handy, you're valuable. There's a guy who calls himself Dr. Mike. He's not a doctor, but he can get a splinter out with a pocket knife and a steady hand. For that, people slip him their last 2 crackers or promise him dibs on the next decent pillow that shows up. Sometimes, you can even trade for entertainment. A halfway decent joke, a dirty limerick, or a memory from the world above can be worth a swig from someone's bottle or a few minutes with a scavenged Walkman and whatever cassettes survived the humidity. Cheddar Bob himself is known to offer up a prized can of beans in exchange for a story he hasn't heard before, though by now there aren't many left. Of course, every economy has its inflation and crash cycles. You'll wake up one morning and find that the value of ramen noodles has doubled. Usually because someone ate the last pack. Toothbrushes are worthless until someone finds a tube of toothpaste. Cheddar Bob's pronouncements are the closest thing to monetary policy the tunnels have. If he says socks are now worth 3 cigarettes, then you'd better start hoarding socks or pick up smoking. And like any market, there are scams. You'll get hustled by a trade that sounds too good to be true, like when someone offers a genuine subway token that's actually a washer, or a can of beans that expired when Nixon was still in office. Trust is a rare commodity, so deals are sealed with eye contact and the kind of handshakes that would make your grandma nervous. But the truth is, the economy down here isn't about getting rich, it's about getting by. Barter is survival, hustle is life. You measure wealth in warmth, calories, and the occasional laugh, not numbers on a bank statement. So you keep trading, keep hustling, and hope that tonight you'll have just enough for a hot meal, a dry spot, and maybe, if you're lucky, a new pair of socks. Let's talk cleanliness. Showers are a memory. The most you can hope for is a splash from a leaking pipe and a quick check for lice. Teeth? If you find a stick and some baking soda, you're basically a dental hygienist. Down here, hygiene is less about achieving that fresh from the shower sparkle and more about keeping the worst at bay. Your standards, like your socks, drop a little more each week. Above ground, people fret about organic soap and sulfate-free shampoo. Below ground, you're aiming for not actively rotting. If you smell only slightly like an abandoned YMCA locker room, you're doing better than most. Let's start with washing. Real showers are a thing of the past, a hazy dream involving warm water, fluffy towels, and a bathroom door that locks. The closest you come now is the subway splash. You spot a leaky steam pipe or, if you're lucky, a trickle of relatively clean water running down a tile wall. You wait until the trains are quiet, then awkwardly dab at yourself with an old t-shirt or a chunk of newspaper. Congratulations! You're now both showering and exfoliating at the same time. Of course, you're not alone in your quest for cleanliness. If you see someone suddenly sprinting toward a particular corner, chances are a fresh drip has started. The line for a decent trickle can get competitive. There are legends of a tunnel near Times Square with a functioning spigot, like the fountain of youth for subway dwellers. But nobody who's found it ever comes back with proof. Most likely, it's just a fancy rumor started by someone trying to distract you from the best trash pile. Soap is rare, coveted, and usually traded like currency. If you're fortunate enough to score a sliver, you use it sparingly, portioning it out like you're in a prison camp run by Martha Stewart, shampoo. You settle for a rainstorm, head tilted skyward through a subway grate while praying the water isn't mostly city runoff. Lather. Rinse. Regret. Laundry is another saga. No one is separating delicates. You wash what you can, when you can, sometimes in a bucket, sometimes in a puddle, sometimes just by shaking it out and pretending that friction counts as cleaning. Drying clothes is even trickier. In winter, you hope to score a spot near a steam vent. In summer, you string things up near the tunnel ceiling and keep an eye out for both theft and falling debris. If you see someone walking around in nothing but a trench coat, odds are their clothes are drying somewhere nearby. Or maybe that's just their style. No judgment. Teeth? Dental hygiene is a choose-your-own adventure. A stick, a piece of string, maybe a half-used tube of toothpaste fished out of a trash can. Baking soda, when you can get it, doubles as toothpaste, deodorant, and, in some cases, breakfast. If you manage to brush twice a week, you're practically a dentist. Nobody is flossing. Gum disease is just a way of life. The real nightmare, though, is lice. You learn to do the quick check every morning. Fingers in hair. Scan for movement. Try not to think too hard about what you might find. If you have access to a plastic comb, guard it with your life. You'll see people hunting through their hair by the dim light of a flashlight, grumbling and cursing. part of the daily grooming routine alongside pulling yesterday's gravel out of your shoes. And yet, you adapt. You develop a kind of urban immunity, a grime tolerance. Eventually the smells fade, or maybe your nose just gives up. You learn tricks from the veterans. Rub vinegar, if you find any, in your hair, stuff your shoes with mint leaves, wipe your face with old fast food napkins. If nothing else, you blend into the subterranean perfume, a mix of sweat, old metal, and hope. Hygiene, in the tunnels, isn't about being spotless. It's about hanging on to the last scraps of dignity and civilization. A clean shirt, a quick splash. The feeling that you're still yourself under all the layers of grit. You make do, you get by. And the day you finally get a real shower again, you promise you'll never take it for granted. You will. Romance is complicated when your idea of a date night is sitting on a warm subway grate, sharing a can of SpaghettiOs. But people still fall in love, or at least they find someone to split a rat-proof blanket with. In the tunnels, romance is less about candlelight and more about the comfort of body heat and a shared understanding of the absurd. You won't find chocolates or roses down here unless someone scored a half-melted candy bar from a commuter or found a wilted flower still clinging to life in a discarded bouquet. But you will find something deeper, if rougher around the edges. A kind of partnership built on shared struggle, mutual protection, and the tiniest glimmers of hope that float like dust in the beams of subway headlights. It starts with a look, not the lingering, sultry kind you see in the movies, more a sideways glance across a crowded tunnel, a quick check to see if the other person has the sort of blanket you'd trust with your toes. Maybe you meet because you're both chasing the same rumor about a hot vent, or maybe someone drops a can of beans and you both pounce at once. Fingers brushing in the dim. The rest of the world might judge you for calling this romance. But what do they know about surviving in the dark? Courtship, if you can call it that, is all about subtlety. You might share a half-crushed donut, or take turns watching over each other's stuff during a supply run. It's not about grand gestures, but quiet loyalty. Scooting over so your partner has the softest patch of cardboard, swapping stories during the endless hours when sleep won't come, braving the rat patrol together so neither of you loses your snacks to the midnight scavengers. Every favor is a kind of promise. I'll look out for you, if you look out for me. Privacy is scarce. Tunnel love stories unfold in the open, under the blinking gaze of fluorescent lights and the half-curious stares of the tunnel community. Everyone becomes a witness, an advisor, or an occasional matchmaker. You get advice from the elders. Always pick someone with 2 pairs of socks, not just one, and hear legends about legendary couples who made it out together, or at least made it through another winter side by side. If you're lucky, you get a spot to yourselves behind a cardboard wall, but more often, romance blooms in whispered conversations between train arrivals and in the brief stillness after the last commuter has vanished for the night. Arguments are rarely about love itself. They're about the essentials: who gets the blanket edge, who forgot to save the last match, who's responsible for chasing away a particularly brazen rat. Reconciliation comes quickly. Down here, holding a grudge just means sleeping cold and alone, and nobody wants that. And for all its strangeness, there's real tenderness too. Maybe you trade a treasured trinket for a piece of chocolate when your partner's feeling low. Maybe you piece together a gift, a shiny token, a string of beads, a crumpled but colorful magazine clipping. On Valentine's Day, Tunnel Elvis sometimes serenades couples with a love song or two, and for a few brief moments, even the dirtiest, draftiest corner feels like the dance floor at a wedding. But most of all, tunnel love is about survival, a reminder that even in the city's deepest shadows, people seek connection, comfort, and the sense that they're not entirely alone. When the cold creeps in, when fear gnaws at your resolve, there's someone to share the warmth, the laughter, and the last spoonful of SpaghettiOs You might not make it out together. You might not make it out at all, but for one night or one season, you belong to each other, in a world designed to keep you apart. That's a victory. One more stubborn reason to hope, to dream, and to hold on tight beneath the city streets. Romance is complicated when your idea of a date night is sitting on a warm subway grate sharing a can of SpaghettiOs. But people still fall in love, or at least they find someone to split a rat-proof blanket with. Let's be honest. This isn't the stuff of romance novels. There are no violin serenades, no candle-lit dinners, unless you count the flicker of a stolen lighter and the faint aroma of yesterday's fried chicken wafting from the platform above. Down here, love is more a survival strategy than a sweeping epic. Still, it happens. When the rest of the world won't see you, sometimes you find someone who will. First, you spot each other across the tracks. Maybe it's the way she's wrapped herself in a patchwork quilt of old t-shirts, or the way he guards his corner like it's Buckingham Palace. You offer a smile, which is harder than it sounds. Nobody wants to look too friendly in the tunnels, or you'll end up fending off everyone's requests for an extra cigarette. But you take the risk, and sometimes she smiles back. Courtship, tunnel style, is an exercise in shared misery. You start by pooling resources. She's got a spoon, you've got an unopened can of soup. He's found a relatively clean patch of cardboard. You have the knowledge of a vent that leaks warm air. There's no swiping left or right, just the slow exchange of trust. You watch each other's stuff when it's time to panhandle. You swap stories to drown out the noise of the trains. You start keeping an eye out for each other. The city's endless cold and chaos momentarily held at bay. Maybe you both end up sitting shoulder to shoulder under the same tattered blanket. There's no privacy, so love affairs happen in full view of the tunnel society. The old-timers notice first. Their running commentary equal parts nosy and supportive. Tunnel Elvis offers a dedication. Cheddar Bob mutters, "That'll never last," but he saves you the last corner of his bread anyway. It's as close as you'll get to an in-law's blessing. Every relationship has its hurdles. Down here, it's mostly logistics. Who gets the inside spot next to the wall? Whose turn is it to chase away the particularly ambitious rat? How do you split a can of beans fairly when there's only one dented spoon and no working can opener? Arguments happen, usually over whose blanket smells worse or who snored through the 3 a.m. police sweep. Reconciliation is usually a matter of sharing the last sip of coffee or huddling together for body heat when the cold sneaks in. Jealousy isn't about flirting, it's about resources. If you give away your only pair of clean socks, everyone notices. If you sneak off to another tunnel to trade for snacks, there are questions. Tunnel society thrives on gossip. Breakups are public affairs, with everyone weighing in, offering advice, or just enjoying the drama. The tunnels may be dark, but secrets are hard to keep when everyone sleeps 3 feet apart. And yet, in spite of everything, or maybe because of it, real connections form. You celebrate anniversaries with a found cupcake or an extra long nap uninterrupted by train announcements. Sometimes, someone scrounges up a battered deck of cards, and you and your partner get to spend a few precious minutes pretending you're just another couple, anywhere else. Not two lost souls in the city's underbelly. Some loves last through the winter, others fade when the weather gets warmer or someone gets a chance to leave the tunnels. There are heartbreaks, tears, and sometimes a little hope. People find each other, lose each other, and, occasionally, find each other again in a new tunnel, sharing the same battered spoon. Down here, love isn't about sweeping gestures. It's about survival, stubbornness, and the tiny warmth of another person breathing next to you in the dark. Tunnel love is hard-won, makeshift, sometimes tragic, and always real. Because in a world that's forgotten you, holding someone close, even just for a night, feels like remembering you're human after all. Sometimes, things get ambitious. Maybe you and your crew spot an abandoned briefcase or a forgotten brown bag. The adrenaline rush is real, even if the prize is just a half-eaten salami sandwich and a crossword puzzle with all the good clues already filled in. Let's be clear. In the tunnels, heists aren't just about scoring big. They're about making the day a little less boring and a little more legendary. Above ground, a successful heist might mean bank vaults or diamonds. Below ground, it's a limp hoagie, a warm can of grape soda, and bragging rights for at least a week. For a few shining moments, you're not just surviving, you're living the dream. Albeit a dream with a very low bar. It starts the same way every time. Someone spots the goods. Maybe it's Cheddar Bob, his nose for sandwiches as sharp as ever. Or maybe Tunnel Elvis, who swears he can smell pastrami from 2 stations away. The word spreads, unclaimed bag on bench 3. The crew assembles, everyone suddenly invested like you're the cast of Ocean's 11. But with fewer tuxedos and a lot more duct tape, every heist needs a plan. First, you scope out the area. Are there commuters watching? Transit cops on patrol? Any suspicious rats loitering nearby, eyeing your prize? There's a real risk. The sandwich could be bait, set out by a rival crew, or worse, the MTA lost and found. But fortune favors the bold and the hungry, so you huddle up and strategize. Someone acts as lookout, practicing their best. I'm just resting here. Officer expression. Another person sidles up, blending in with the platform crowd as if they've got somewhere to be. Even though none of you have had a calendar appointment since Carter was president. The most agile volunteer, the one with the fewest creaky joints, makes the grab. The handoff is quick. Bag under jacket. Walk away casually. Don't look back. Don't attract attention. Once the loot is secured, you find a discreet spot for the grand reveal. The mood is tense. You open the bag with the reverence of a pharaoh inspecting a pyramid's treasure. Inside, a sandwich, half-eaten, but still technically food. Someone tries to call dibs on the bigger half. Negotiations break out. There's also a crumpled napkin. Bonus. A suspiciously sticky apple, and, to everyone's amusement, a crossword puzzle that's 90% done and 100% impossible to finish without arguing over what's a 7-letter word for urban rodent. You split the sandwich as fairly as you can. Someone measures, someone supervises, someone accuses the slicer of bias. Tunnel justice is swift. The apple is auctioned to the least picky eater. The crossword is claimed by Tunnel Elvis, who insists he'll use it for kindling unless inspiration strikes. The half sandwich is devoured in under 60 seconds. And for a brief, shining moment, morale is up. Heists aren't always successful. Sometimes the bag contains nothing but napkins and a receipt for a massage you'll never afford. Sometimes the briefcase is full of expired paperwork and one leaky pen. But every score, no matter how small, gets added to the tunnel folklore. Remember the time we found a whole, unopened can of Sprite? That story gets told and retold, each time growing a little grander, a little more epic, until you'd swear you once lifted a gourmet feast from a Wall Street banker's private stash. There are rules, too. If the prize is bigger than a sandwich, a working radio, a clean blanket, it gets divided up, traded, or auctioned. Greed is frowned upon. If you hoard the loot, you'll end up eating alone, and nobody wants that. The true value of a heist isn't what you find, but the way it brings people together, a reminder that, even down here, a little teamwork can make life a little more absurd and a lot more bearable. Because in the tunnels, every triumph, no matter how small or how soggy, is worth celebrating. And if your legacy is a half sandwich and a joke about crossword puzzles, well, that's a win. When you run out of heroin, Time slows down. Your bones hurt. The cold seeps in. And you'd trade your soul for a hot shower or a single Tylenol. It's like the world's worst flu, only with more existential dread and fewer supportive nurses. Let's talk about what happens when the tunnel goes quiet and the supply dries up. Because down here, the difference between having and not having isn't just inconvenience. It's the kind of bodily rebellion that makes you realize your skeleton has opinions. And it's furious. The first few hours feel like denial. You sit there thinking, maybe you still have something tucked away. Maybe there's a baggie somewhere in your jacket pocket. Maybe you forgot about it. Maybe the universe accidentally gave you a freebie. You shake out your clothes like you're trying to summon a genie from lint. Nothing. You check again. Still nothing. And dot. It's amazing how fast hope becomes a chore. Then the symptoms arrive like a bad landlord. Your skin starts crawling. Not metaphorically, like actual ants are holding a dance party under your flesh. You're sweating, even though the tunnel is freezing. Your shirt clings to you like wet paper. Your hair sticks to your forehead. And you feel like your whole body is trying to escape through your pores. Your stomach turns into a violent, unpredictable sea. Hunger shows up, but it's not normal hunger. It's nausea dressed as hunger, hunger dressed as nausea, and both of them are screaming. Your guts churn like someone left a washing machine on spin cycle. You know you should eat something, anything, but the thought of food makes your body revolt. Even that stale donut from 2 days ago suddenly seems like a threat. Your body doesn't want calories. It wants the thing it's missing, and it's prepared to punish you for not providing it. Your legs won't stop moving. They twitch, they kick, restless, angry, like they're auditioning for a disco dance competition you never signed up for. You try to lie still, but your muscles refuse. It's like every nerve has been turned up to maximum volume, and your body can't find the off switch. And then the cold hits. Tunnel cold is already personal. But withdrawal cold is a different beast. It creeps in and makes itself at home. You wrap yourself in blankets, cardboard, coats, whatever you've got. But your bones stay frozen, not your skin, your bones. Like someone poured ice water into your marrow. You shiver so hard you wonder if you might actually rattle apart like an old subway car. Time stretches. Minutes become hours. Hours become full lifetimes. You look up at the tunnel ceiling and feel like you've been staring at it since childhood. You hear the trains pass overhead, and each one feels like a reminder. People are moving forward. People are going to work. People are eating breakfast. People are buying coffee. And you are stuck in a personal apocalypse under the city, sweating through your shirt and freezing at the same time, like some cruel biological joke. Your mind does its own special torture. It plays memories like a sad little movie theater. Your mother's face, a street in summer, a clean bathroom, a warm bed, things that feel impossibly far away now. Your brain drags up regrets like souvenirs. You start thinking about every decision you've made, every person you've disappointed, every chance you've missed. It's like your mind is hosting a late-night talk show called So How Did You End Up Here? And the guest is you, and the host is mean, and you don't sleep. Not real sleep. You drift in and out of half dreams where you're constantly falling or constantly searching. You wake up gasping, soaked in sweat, heart pounding like a train, only to realize nothing has changed. You're still here, still cold, still aching, still empty. The worst part is the bargaining. You'd do anything for relief. Anything. You'd trade your last pair of socks. You'd trade your dignity. You'd trade your name. You start whispering deals to no one, promising you'll change, promising you'll quit, promising you'll be better if the universe just gives you a break. And the universe, as always, stays silent. After 48 hours, you're not you anymore. You're a stripped-down creature of need, shivering in the dark. And if you survive it, and that's a big if, you'll crawl back into the hunt again. Because withdrawal doesn't just hurt, it reminds you, in the cruelest way possible, that your body is no longer yours. It belongs to the dragon now. And you can't make this up. Up above, people pay for white noise machines. Down here, the lullaby is the shriek of brakes, the rattle of trains, and the occasional disco echo from a boombox 3 tunnels over. You get used to it, or you go completely insane, sometimes both. If you ever wondered what real insomnia sounds like, try sleeping beneath an 8-lane train highway. There's a rhythm to subway life, but it's less Beethoven and more experimental percussion ensemble meets angry construction site. The first time you try to sleep, the sound nearly launches you out of your blanket. You clutch your chest and realize, no, that wasn't a gunshot, just the N train saying hello in its charmingly aggressive way. Over time, you learn to catalogue the sounds. There's the deep thunder of express trains roaring past at 2 a.m., the wheeze and clatter of local trains limping into the station, the high-pitched squeal of metal on metal that makes your fillings buzz. And then, of course, the brakes, a long, drawn-out wail that starts in Brooklyn and doesn't really stop until you've given up all hope of uninterrupted REM sleep. Background noise isn't limited to trains. There's the constant drip, drip, drip of water somewhere overhead, forever threatening to grow into a waterfall directly on your head. Somewhere in the distance, a pipe rattles every time a toilet flushes 5 stories up. Sometimes you get the squawk of a malfunctioning loudspeaker, caught in an endless loop. Stand clear of the closing doors, please. Stand clear of the closing doors, please. It's like being serenaded by a particularly unimaginative parrot. The rats add their own harmony. Little paws skittering across pipes. The faintest squeaks as they argue over the last piece of crust. Sometimes a pigeon finds its way into the tunnels, fluttering and cooing with the same confused tenacity as every lost tourist in Times Square. If you're truly lucky, you'll catch the distant sound of a busker rehearsing for their big break, their saxophone notes echoing like jazz ghosts, just audible enough to remind you that you are, in fact, still in New York City. And then, of course, there's disco. Always disco. You never know where it's coming from or who is responsible, but every night, at precisely the moment you start drifting off, there it is, a muffled thump, 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 and a singer wailing about staying alive. Tunnel Elvis swears it's his old boombox, but nobody's ever seen him change the batteries. Maybe it's just the city's spirit animal, eternal, slightly off-key, and determined to party no matter the circumstances. After a while, these noises stop being interruptions and start being familiar. You learn to distinguish the trains by sound alone. The express is a rolling earthquake, the local is a tired sigh. The garbage train is a carnival of clanking misery. You even come to rely on the racket. The day the train stopped during the 1977 blackout, the silence was so unsettling that nobody could sleep. The absence of noise was scarier than the noise itself, like the city had finally run out of steam and left everyone behind. The sounds shape your dreams. You drift in and out, dreaming of metal dragons and rivers of light. Sometimes the train's rattle becomes ocean waves, and for a few blissful moments, you're back on a beach somewhere, far away from subway tile and rats. Then the brakes jolt you awake, and you remember, nope, still here. Eventually, you stop fighting the noise. You let it wash over you, a messy, chaotic lullaby. It's not peaceful, but it's real. It's the city's heartbeat, thumping through the tunnels, reminding you that, even when you feel alone, there's a whole world above and around you, loud, relentless and impossible to ignore. Down here, silence is a myth. But who needs silence anyway? You've got the music of the underground. Style is what you make it. Old army jackets, mismatched shoes, a scarf made from a strip of carpeting. If you look like you escaped from a thrift store explosion, you're doing it right. Just don't wear anything too clean, or you'll get mugged for it. In the tunnels, fashion isn't about standing out. It's about blending in, layering up, and surviving the city's many, many moods. Above ground, there are trends. Disco collars, platform shoes, bell-bottoms. Below, your trend forecast is whatever keeps you warm and doesn't have visible holes in all the wrong places. Forget about brand names. Down here, the only label that matters is found it before the rats did. Let's start with the basics. The army jacket. Somehow, every third tunnel dweller has one, usually with at least 3 mysterious stains and a story no one wants to hear. It's tough, it's got pockets for days, and if you're lucky, the zipper mostly works. Some claim their jacket came straight from a real soldier. Others are pretty sure it was liberated from the lost and found at Port Authority. Either way, it's the official uniform of the Undercity, good for blocking both wind and unwanted conversation. Pants are whatever you can scrounge, with a premium placed on anything that doesn't require daily laundering, since that's not happening. Bell-bottoms from 3 years ago, high waters from 10 years ago, jeans held together by pure willpower and a patchwork of duct tape. If you manage to score a pair of sweatpants, consider yourself royalty. And then there's footwear, the Achilles heel of tunnel couture. Matching shoes are a luxury. More often, you're rocking one Converse and one boot, or maybe a pair of loafers with the word almost written all over them. Socks are a precious commodity. If you have 2 clean pairs, you're basically a tunnel influencer. For those with no shame or desperate circulation, plastic bags over shoes are a classic move, waterproof, windproof, and instantly screams, "I know what I'm doing." Sort of. Now, let's talk accessories. Scarves are legendary, made from old shirts, ragged towels, or in truly inspired moments, actual carpet remnants. Sure, it itches, but it beats freezing. Hats range from classic beanies to the occasional bowler, found who knows where and worn with an air of irreverent dignity. Some people swear by fingerless gloves, others just use tube socks with the toes cut out. It's a look. Personal expression still matters, even when you're one step from frostbite. A painted button, a string of bottle caps, a necklace made from subway tokens, call it tunnel bling. Tunnel Elvis, naturally, sports sequin vests for all occasions, and nobody asks questions. You might see a bandana that was once a tablecloth, or a belt fashioned from a retired dog leash. If it can hold up your pants, it's in style. Cleanliness is a double-edged sword. Look too fresh, and you're a target. Someone might decide your shirt would look better on them. Look too dirty, and you risk being mistaken for an abandoned pile of laundry. The sweet spot? Gently worn, slightly stained, unmistakably unremarkable. You want to look like you belong, but not like you're showing off. It's a fine art, this camouflage. And let's not forget tunnel trends. Every season brings a new look, dictated by whatever's recently been dropped, lost, or discarded by commuters. There was the poncho spring, when someone scored a box of plastic raincoats and everyone looked like emergency marshmallows for a month. Or corduroy Christmas, when the thrift store donation bin overflowed and suddenly everyone was uncomfortably warm and noisy. In the end, tunnel fashion is about survival, resourcefulness, and the kind of quiet pride that comes from making do. You might not walk a runway, but you're strutting down the platform with your chin up and your left shoe 3 sizes bigger than your right. And if you ever do make it back to the surface, you'll never complain about department store prices again. After all, When you've lived through the season of carpet scarves and one sock winters, you know that true style isn't about what you wear. It's about how stubbornly you refuse to freeze. The cycle is relentless. Wake up, hustle for cash or barter, find the dealer, pray you don't get robbed, try not to think about your mom, repeat. It's a full-time job with zero benefits and a health plan that mostly involves not dying. Let's talk about routine. Because yes, even down here, in the tunnels beneath Manhattan, you develop one. It's not a healthy routine. It's not a cute morning routine with green juice and affirmations. It's more like a haunted assembly line where each day begins with your body demanding something and ends with you trying to quiet it just long enough to sleep. You wake up stiff and half frozen, your spine pressed into concrete like you've been marinating in discomfort all night. There's no gentle sunrise. There's just the flicker of fluorescent light, the distant thunder of trains, and the sound of someone nearby coughing like their lungs are filing for divorce. Your stomach is hollow. Your head is heavy. Your skin feels wrong, too tight, too loose, too awake. Even before you sit up, you know what today is about. It's always about the same thing, so you get up. Step 1 is inventory. Not of possessions, those are always changing. You're taking inventory of your chances. Do you have anything left to trade? A cigarette? A shoelace? A spare glove? Do you have enough energy to walk to the surface? Enough dignity to panhandle? Enough luck to make it through the day without someone stealing your coat or your soul? You check your pockets like it's a religious ritual. Sometimes you find nothing. Sometimes you find 3 crumpled quarters and a subway token from 1973 that might technically still work if the booth clerk is feeling charitable. Most of the time, you find lint and regret, but you take what you can get. Then you hustle. Hustling above ground is humiliating in a very specific way. People look at you like you're a glitch in the city's programming. They avert their eyes, clutch their purses, and suddenly become fascinated by the sky. You stand near a subway entrance and hold out your hand, trying to look desperate enough to inspire sympathy, but not desperate enough to inspire fear. It's a narrow lane. You'd be amazed how quickly human kindness evaporates when you smell like tunnel damp and sadness. So maybe you don't panhandle, maybe you scavenge. You check trash cans, platforms, benches. You look for anything with value. Bottles, cans, loose change, a dropped glove, a newspaper that can later become insulation. If you find a working lighter, you're basically rich. If you find an unopened snack, you're practically blessed. You move like a professional. Because you are one. In your own way. You know which stations have the best trash. You know which corners are safer. You know which cops are cranky and which ones pretend not to see you. You know which tourists might give you $1 just to feel like they did something good today. Eventually, you scrape enough together. Now comes the part where your heart rate doubles and every shadow becomes suspicious again. You head toward the meat spot, an alley, a stairwell, a corner near a payphone that doesn't work. You wait. You pace. You chew your lip until it's raw. You look at your hands and wonder how long they've been shaking. You hear footsteps and tense up. You hear sirens and flinch. You're always bracing for 2 things. Either the dealer doesn't show, or the dealer shows with cops. And when the dealer finally arrives, you try to act normal, which is hilarious, because nothing about this is normal. It's a quick exchange. Cash for bag. No conversation. No names. No, have a great day. The only greeting is the look in your eyes that says, please don't screw me, and the look in his that says, I absolutely might. Then you leave fast because you know the rules. You don't linger. You don't celebrate. You don't look anyone in the face because you could get robbed. You could get stopped. You could drop it. You could die. This city does not care which one happens, and the tunnels care even less. You return underground, with the tiny bag tucked into your pocket like it's a priceless jewel. And in a way, it is. It's not happiness. It's not peace. It's just relief. A brief pause in the grinding machinery of need. You don't let yourself think about your mom. Because if you do, you might remember that she once bought you a winter coat, or that she once called you by your name like it meant something, or that she'd probably cry if she knew you were living under the tracks, trading cardboard for warmth and praying not to get robbed for a $5 bag of poison. So you don't think about it. You focus on the immediate. You focus on the fix. You focus on getting through today. Because tomorrow, you'll wake up and do it again, and the cycle doesn't end. It just keeps spinning, like the trains above you, forever circling, forever moving, forever arriving and leaving while you stay right here, trying to survive in the dark. When sleep comes, it's never restful. You drift between dreams of sunlight and the blinding hallucinations that come with withdrawal, fever, or just a particularly strong subway smell. Sometimes you wake up sure you're in Coney Island, only to realize it's just the urine-scented stairwell again. Sleep, in the tunnels, is always an adventure, usually the terrifying kind. The line between dream and waking blurs when you haven't seen daylight in days and your bed is a pile of cardboard pressed into the shape of last week's regrets. You doze off to the lullaby of train brakes and dripping pipes, only to be dragged back by the chorus of your own shivering or the not-so-gentle nudge of a passing rat. Nobody tells you that exhaustion can feel like intoxication, or that dreams down here are as vivid as fever, sharp, strange, and always just out of reach. Sometimes your mind takes you home. In your sleep, you remember sunlight, the feeling of grass beneath your feet, someone calling your name, your real name, the one you barely use anymore. You walk through a memory of Sunday morning breakfast, eggs, toast, orange juice that isn't in a dented can. It's so real you can almost smell it, until the stench of tunnel mildew drags you back. You wake, heart pounding, mouth dry, convinced you've lost something crucial but you can't remember what it was. And then there are the dreams you never want to revisit. Withdrawal brings its own brand of cinema. Wild, looping hallucinations where time slips sideways and reality gets stuck on fast forward. You see things in the tunnel shadows, old friends, lost pets. That teacher who once said you had potential. Sometimes you swear you see your mum, reaching for you from the end of a darkened corridor, her face flickering in the fluorescent light. Sometimes you see yourself, younger and cleaner, running up the subway stairs into a city that doesn't feel like a trap. Other times, it's just the madness of the tunnels themselves. Subway sounds morph into entire symphonies in your mind. The rattle of a passing train becomes waves crashing on a beach you've never visited. The whistle of distant brakes is suddenly a chorus of birds. The echoing footfalls of an MTA worker sweep past and turn, inexplicably, into a parade of shoes, every pair you've ever owned, marching along without you. The rats become dancers, the drips become applause, and for a few delirious minutes, you're the star of a one-man show staged entirely in your head. The worst are the dreams that almost make sense. You find a door in the tunnel wall. You walk through it, expecting salvation. Maybe a warm meal. Maybe a real bed. Maybe just silence. But the door always leads you right back to the tunnels, or, if your brain is feeling really cruel, to a version of your old life that disappears the second you reach for it. You wake up with your heart aching for things that were never yours to begin with. Sometimes the hallucinations don't stop when you open your eyes. The boundary between dream and waking is so thin you can see through it. Colors seem brighter than they should be. Shadows flicker in the corner of your vision. A scrap of graffiti suddenly reads like a love letter, or a warning, or both. The cold in your bones becomes the icy grip of a phantom you can't shake off. Is that real music drifting from the next tunnel? Or just the soundtrack of your fraying mind? It doesn't matter either way. You lie there, shivering, telling yourself you'll know the difference in the morning. But morning never comes all at once in the subway. It just sort of leaks in, one fluorescent bulb at a time. You wake, unsure if you've slept at all, haunted by fragments of dreams, or visions, or maybe just the chemical static in your brain. In the end, it hardly matters. Above ground or below, everyone dreams. Down here, yours are just louder, weirder, and impossible to escape. Some nights, you remember you used to have a family. Maybe you find a payphone and call home, only to hang up before anyone answers. Nostalgia hits hardest when the only warm thing in your life is a busted steam pipe. There's a certain hour in the tunnels, call it midnight, call it the graveyard shift, when the noise dies down and you're left alone with yourself. That's when memory gets dangerous. It sneaks up, softer than the scuttle of a rat, and drops you right back in a kitchen somewhere, or on a stoop, or in a car with the radio playing the song that always made your mum tear up. You try not to think about it, but some nights the brain insists. The phone calls are the worst. Most of the payphones barely work, half of them are out of order, and the rest are haunted by old gum, new graffiti, and the ghosts of collect calls that never went through. You stand there with a handful of coins, heart pounding, the receiver pressed against your cheek so hard it leaves a mark. You dial the number by muscle memory. Ring, ring, your breath hitches. But when you hear the click on the other end, real or imagined, you freeze. Sometimes you listen to the silence, counting heartbeats. Sometimes you hang up before the first hello, afraid your voice will break, or worse, that no one will answer at all. Some nights you even leave a message. You tell yourself you're just checking in. You try to sound normal. Hey, it's me. Just wanted to hear your voice. You leave out the details, the cardboard bed, the cold, the deal's gone wrong. You say you're fine and hang up before you can add, I'm sorry. Because sorry is too heavy. And anyway, it's been said before. 100 times. 1,000. Memories show up uninvited. They don't care if you're trying to sleep, or if the last thing you want is to remember Thanksgiving at your aunt's house, or your little sister's birthday. A whiff of roasting nuts from a street vendor, a flash of a red winter coat, a snatch of a song drifting down from the subway platform. Suddenly, you're 10 years old again, begging for another slice of cake, promising you'll never run away, never mess up. The ache that comes with it is a kind of homesickness, but it's more than that. It's a longing for a version of yourself you can barely recall. You think about family photos, the kind you never carried with you because you thought you wouldn't be gone long. You think about faces and how they blur over time. Did your dad always have that mustache? Did your brother ever forgive you for stealing his Walkman? Did your mum's voice always sound like that? You start to worry that, eventually, you'll forget everything except the tunnels. But the thing about regret is, it doesn't let you off easy. It lives in every missed call, every letter you never sent, every argument you can't take back. You replay old conversations in your head, editing yourself to sound wiser, kinder, more grateful. In your mind, you never left. You never hurt anyone. You made it home for Christmas. You said thank you. You said goodbye. Sometimes the only thing to do is tuck your memories away and focus on the now, on survival, on staying warm, on making it to the next day. But the memories come back, stubborn as ever, right when the city above is quiet and your heart is loud. If you're lucky, you let yourself feel something just for a minute before the tunnel noise picks up again. and it's back to routine. Because even down here, family never really leaves you. It's just a little harder to reach, a little quieter to hear, and, on the hardest nights, the only thing that keeps you fighting for one more sunrise. Being invisible is a survival skill. You keep your head down, learn which tunnels are safe, and never, ever tell anyone where you actually sleep. If you have one rule, it's trust no one with a mustache and a clipboard. Down here, the difference between safe and sorry can be measured in a glance, a whisper, or which side of the tracks you choose to walk on. Tunnel society rewards the cautious, the discreet, and the people who can spot a cop before he spots you. Invisibility isn't just about staying out of sight. It's about blending in until you're part of the concrete. Just another moving shadow lost in the perpetual dusk of the subway's underbelly. Let's talk about movement. You never want to be the one drawing attention. No wild gestures, no loud voices. Even if you hit the jackpot, say a working lighter or a whole sandwich, you celebrate with a nod, not a shout. Flashy gets you noticed, and noticed gets you robbed, questioned, or worse. You practice the shuffle, a walk that's brisk but not hurried, confident but never cocky, always scanning, always aware, never letting your eyes linger too long on anyone. There's an art to choosing your spot. Some tunnels are like neighborhoods. Everyone has a reputation. Some are known for being friendly. Others are ruled by self-appointed kings and queens who don't take kindly to trespassers. You learn fast which platforms are okay for sleeping, which stairwells are safe for a quick fix, and which dark corners are strictly off-limits unless you want trouble with the local rat mafia, or Cheddar Bob, who is, frankly, scarier than most rats. Then there are the surface dangers, the police, the transit workers, and the helpful city officials who show up in pairs with clipboards and an eager look that says, "Let's move some people around and call it public service." Rule of thumb: never trust anyone who looks like they enjoy paperwork, especially if they have a mustache. The clipboard is just a prop. The real show is convincing you to relocate to a shelter or a new neighborhood, which usually means losing whatever patch of ground you've managed to claim and starting over somewhere even less forgiving. You keep your circle small. Trust is a rare currency and gets spent carefully. You learn to spot the regulars, the guy who always carries a battered paperback, the woman who sells subway maps she drew herself, the kid with the hat that's 2 sizes too big. These are the people you nod to, trade with, maybe share a tip about where the cops are patrolling tonight. But you never tell anyone where you actually sleep. That's sacred knowledge, protected by half-truths, red herrings, and an elaborate choreography of decoy moves. And getting high? That's a delicate dance. It's not about celebration, it's about relief and escape, sure. But it's also about minimizing risk. Never use in plain sight. Never use around strangers. Never leave evidence behind. You watch your back, your stash, your friends, because down here, everyone's desperate, and desperation makes people do stupid things. There's always the fear that someone's watching, waiting for you to drop your guard, your bag, your last good spoon. When things get tense, when someone new shows up, or you spot a cop's shoes on the platform, you know how to disappear. Maybe it's slipping behind a pillar, ducking into a service tunnel, or just freezing until the danger passes. It's exhausting, living on high alert, but it's what keeps you breathing. You trade comfort for security, visibility for another night of peace. Staying low isn't about cowardice. It's survival. It's learning that the loudest voice is rarely the safest, and that the most successful tunnel dwellers are the ones who leave no mark, no story, and no forwarding address. So you keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your secrets close. You trust no one with a mustache and a clipboard, and you make it through another day, unseen and, if you're lucky, untouched. Someone gets sick or overdoses. There's no doctor, just whatever first aid knowledge you picked up from TV or an old Boy Scout manual. Narcan? Never heard of her. Sometimes you survive, sometimes you don't. When you're living in the tunnels, you quickly learn that the city's healthcare system is more of a rumor than a resource. There are no appointments, no insurance forms, and certainly no on-call nurse. Your ER is whatever patch of floor you collapse on, and your medical team is whoever happens to be nearby, assuming they don't faint at the sight of blood, or worse, decide your shoes look ripe for the taking. If you want triage, you'd better hope someone's seen an episode of Mass Times H and isn't squeamish. Emergencies don't wait for business hours. It could be 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning. Someone slumps over, sweating and shaking. Or a friend takes a hit and suddenly stops breathing. Panic always ripples through the tunnel, a current of shared dread. Because everyone knows help isn't coming. The nearest hospital is a universe away, and the ambulance, if anyone dares to call, might show up long after the crisis has passed, one way or another. So you improvise. Someone remembers that thing they read in a library book about checking for a pulse. Another person suggests rolling the patient onto their side because it looks more medical. Tunnel Elvis claims he was a nurse once, but nobody can prove it. Cheddar Bob is in charge of crowd control, which mostly means shooing away the more curious rats. You try to remember, is it 15 chest compressions and 2 breaths, or the other way around? Or was that just on TV? You dig through pockets for anything useful. A half-clean handkerchief becomes a bandage. Bottled water is precious, so you ration it carefully. Enough to clean a wound, not enough to waste. Antibiotic ointment? If you've got it, you're the tunnel's VIP for the week. If not, there's always spit, prayers, and the questionable magic of whatever ointment someone found in a trash can last week. Overdoses are the scariest. There's no Narcan down here. If you're lucky, someone knows how to do rescue breathing. If you're luckier, the person wakes up on their own, groggy and confused, and everyone pretends nothing happened. If not, you pound their chest and shout their name, praying for any kind of response. Sometimes, someone sprints to the surface, hoping a payphone still works, hoping someone above cares enough to send help. More often than not, it's just you, your shaking hands, and a desperate kind of hope. When injuries happen, cuts, burns, bites, broken bones, it's all about creativity. Someone's got a roll of duct tape. Someone else has a clean-ish rag. You splint an arm with a piece of cardboard and some string, tie off wounds with old t-shirts, and hope infection doesn't follow. There's always someone willing to give advice, and always someone who claims to have seen worse. The truth is, everyone's making it up as they go. Even the bravest tunnel dwellers get a haunted look when the bleeding won't stop, or the breathing gets rough, or the fever burns higher than a mid-July subway platform. And, of course, some emergencies can't be fixed. Sometimes you sit and hold a hand, telling jokes, humming a tune, pretending the world is still turning the way it should. Down here, the difference between life and death is razor thin, a matter of luck, timing, or who happens to be around when disaster strikes. When it's over, there's no paperwork, no questions, no closure. People disappear quietly, like trains slipping into darkness. But even here, people care. They try. They do what they can. You become each other's doctors, nurses, and family, learning on the job and hoping it's enough. Sometimes you survive. Sometimes you don't. Down in the tunnels, survival is the only prescription. Side effects may include hope, heartbreak, and the sudden, sharp reminder that you're still alive. Eventually, you have to surface. Maybe to panhandle. Maybe to try for a hot meal at a soup kitchen. Sunlight burns your eyes. The city above feels like another universe, one where everyone pretends you're invisible. Coming up from the tunnels after days underground is like being launched onto an alien planet, one with too many people, too much light, and absolutely no understanding of how impressive it is that you haven't frozen, starved, or been mugged by a rat this week. The first few steps out of the subway feel like an escape and a punishment rolled into one. You blink against the daylight, shielding your face with a shaky hand, as if you're a vampire caught in a B-movie. Everything is too bright, too noisy, too clean, or at least cleaner than the world you just left. There's an art to blending back in. The trick is to walk like you belong, even if your outfit consists of a carpet scarf, 2 different shoes, and a layer of subway dust thicker than most people's self-esteem. If you're heading out to panhandle, you choose your spot with care. Too close to a busy entrance, and you'll get shooed away by security. Too far from foot traffic, and you're just practicing yoga in public. Some days you try a sign, scrawled on the back of an old pizza box. Anything helps. Even a smile. Spoiler: smiles are in short supply. The surface world operates on its own bizarre logic. People rushing past don't make eye contact. They clutch their purses and backpacks, scurrying along as if you might leap up and recite poetry at them. And honestly, depending on how long you've been awake, you just might. You notice smells you forgot existed. Coffee, perfume, exhaust. The noise is different too. Up here, it's honking, shouting, the endless chatter of a city that's always busy. Down below, the soundscape was trains and rats. Up here, it's cell phones and car alarms. You make your way to the soup kitchen, keeping your head down, practicing the art of invisibility in broad daylight. The volunteers are mostly kind, handing over a tray of something hot with a smile that's a little too rehearsed. You wolf down your meal, grateful for calories you didn't have to bargain or scavenge for. If you're lucky, you get a second helping. If you're really lucky, you find a battered magazine in the donation bin and spend an hour reading articles about a world where problems come in the form of office drama and seasonal allergies. Sometimes you try to make a call, a real one, not the ghostly dial and hang-up routine from the tunnels. Standing at the payphone, you look around and see yourself reflected in shop windows. The glass doesn't lie. You look tired, older, softer around the edges. You wonder if anyone up here knows what it's like to sleep on concrete, to feel every bone in your body protest when you finally stretch out in the sun. The hardest part about coming up is pretending. Pretending you're just another New Yorker. Pretending the tunnels didn't shape you into someone new, someone half wild and a little feral around the eyes. People above ground think homelessness is a single story, a singular failure or mistake. What they don't see is the web of choices and chances that led you below. Up here, you're background noise. You exist just outside the field of vision, a shadow moving across their day. By afternoon, your energy is spent. The city's indifference starts to sting. So you gather your things and slip back underground, retreating from the harsh kindness of sunlight to the familiar darkness of your chosen world. Down there, at least, you know the rules. The tunnels welcome you back like an old coat, tattered, warm in spots, and always waiting. The daylight dilemma is real. Up above, you're invisible. Down below, you're home. For a little while, anyway. When winter really bites, the tunnels are both sanctuary and trap. The cold gets in everywhere. Blankets are currency, and a good windproof spot is worth more than gold. You pray the trains keep running, because when they stop, the real chill sets in. Down here, winter isn't just a season, it's a test. The city above deals with snow by cursing at the weatherman and hunting for lost gloves. In the tunnels, you measure your worth in layers and luck. The wind sneaks through every crack, howling like a banshee. whipping up dust and making you wish you'd invested in a full-body sleeping bag back when you still had a credit card or a sense of optimism. Everyone's on the move before sundown, scouring for the prime real estate, tucked corners near the hot water pipes, grates that belch steam, forgotten maintenance nooks with just enough shelter to break the wind. You learn to read the signs, a patch of graffiti here, a bundle of rags there, markers left by previous survivors who either found a better spot or didn't make it through the last cold snap. A windproof corner isn't just comfort. It's insurance that you'll still have most of your toes by March. Blankets? They're the real underground currency. Fleece, wool, even that weird electric throw you once fished out of a dumpster, it's all fair game. Tunnel society knows who's got the best setup. Trade a blanket, and you can score a can of beans, a pack of cigarettes, maybe even a spot near someone's half-busted radio. Lose a blanket, and you might as well sign up for a semester in hypothermia. The true ballers are the ones with two, one for the body, one for the feet. Legends speak of a third, rumored but never seen. The cold brings out a kind of solidarity too. People who normally wouldn't say two words to you will share heat, share news, even share a rat-proof spot for the night. It's not kindness exactly, it's survival. There's a saying in the tunnels, when the temp drops, even Cheddar Bob gets generous. If he lets you sit on the edge of his old mattress, you know it's officially freezing. And then there's the rats. Winter pushes them closer too. They're after warmth just like you. And they're not shy about moving in on your territory. You zip your jacket up, tuck your pants into your socks, and hope your makeshift fortress of cardboard holds against their nightly patrol. On particularly cold nights, you make uneasy truces. You don't chase them off your blanket, and they hopefully don't gnaw through your shoes. Desperate times, desperate alliances. Food becomes a second obsession. Your body burns calories just trying to stay warm, so everyone's hungry all the time. You dream of hot soup, real coffee, anything you don't have to eat frozen solid. When you do get something warm, a cup of instant noodles, maybe, or a microwaved burrito from a sympathetic bodega worker, it feels like winning the lottery. You hold it in your hands as long as you can, just to feel the heat. But it's the silence that gets you. When the trains stop running for the night, maintenance, blizzards, a city strike, you realize how much you relied on that rhythmic, rumbling warmth. The temperature drops, and it feels like the tunnels themselves are exhaling, stealing every last shred of heat from your body. You curl up tighter, tuck your nose under your scarf, and try to think warm thoughts. Beach vacations, sunny afternoons, the memory of your grandma's kitchen, anything but the icy now. Winter doesn't care about your plans. Sometimes you wake up, surprised to find you made it through. Other mornings, you're not so sure, stiff, cold, your breath hanging in the air, frost tracing ghostly shapes on the nearest wall. But you get up, stamp your feet, and shuffle to the nearest vent, grateful for another chance to fight the cold one more night. Because in the tunnels, winter is never just a backdrop. It's the main character, the villain, and, occasionally, the reminder that you're tougher than you ever thought you'd need to be. Sometimes someone finds a radio, a can of beer, or a leftover box of Twinkies, and suddenly it's a party. There's music, there's dancing, sort of, and for a few minutes, everyone forgets about the cockroaches and the cold. It almost feels like living. You'd think that after all the misery, people would forget how to celebrate. But the tunnels are full of surprises. If there's one thing you learn down here, it's that humans will always find an excuse to mark the moment. Even if the only thing on the menu is stale pastries and whatever's left in a battered six-pack. Tunnel parties happen when hope sneaks in through the cracks, riding in on the back of a found radio or the miracle of a cold can of beer that didn't freeze in the night. It usually starts with a rumor. Hey, Elvis found a working radio. Cheddar Bob's got his hands on a case of Twinkies. Somebody found a deck of cards that only has 3 missing. The word spreads through the tunnels in hushed tones and coded looks, because nobody wants to attract the attention of party crashers, especially the kind with badges or 4 legs and sharp teeth. When the party finally materializes, it's never at the same place twice. Sometimes it's under the big mural of the disco rat. Sometimes it's in the forgotten corner behind the utility boxes, and sometimes it's on a stretch of platform the trains ignore after midnight. Decorations? If you're lucky, someone strings up a row of stolen Christmas lights or hangs a scarf to mark the dance floor. The lighting is moody, the seating limited, but the vibe? Unbeatable. Music is always the star. Someone will slap the side of a battered radio until it reluctantly wheezes out a few bars of something vaguely recognizable. It could be Motown, disco, or that one static-ridden station that only plays polka after dark. Tunnel Elvis might belt out a few lines of Hound Dog, and everyone sings along, off-key and too loud. Because in the tunnels, nobody's judging. Not tonight. Dancing is optional and rarely graceful. Imagine a room full of people bundled in 6 layers of clothing, shoes 3 sizes too big, and socks that haven't been dry since September. There's shuffling, hopping, the occasional enthusiastic twist that nearly sends someone into the path of a passing rat. It doesn't matter. If your feet move at all, you're ahead of the game. The food? Let's just say the bar is low, but spirits are high. There might be half a loaf of bread passed around like communion, a can of beans split 6 ways, and the crown jewel, a box of Twinkies, each one a golden ticket to nostalgia. People swap stories of better meals and worse nights, raising imaginary toasts to surviving one more day under the city. These moments, fleeting as they are, do more than warm your stomach. They stitch the tunnel community together. For a little while, rivalries are forgotten. Old feuds are ignored, and even Cheddar Bob will share a seat on his prized milk crate. Laughter fills the space between the train rumbles, and if you squint just right, you can almost believe you're at a house party in Brooklyn, not a makeshift celebration in the city's underbelly. The party always ends too soon. Someone hears footsteps or a train comes roaring by, reminding you that, down here, nothing stays safe or secret for long. But for those brief, precious minutes, you're not just surviving, you're living, surrounded by people who understand, at least for a little while, what it means to find joy in the cracks of a hard world. When you finally settle back into your corner, Twinkie crumbs on your chin and music still echoing in your head, you realize this is what keeps you going. The cold, the dark, the hunger, they're all still there. But so is the memory of dancing, of laughter, of living like the world wasn't just something happening to you, but something you could shape, if only for one more night. Down here, people disappear. Sometimes they get clean, sometimes they just get gone. The hardest nights are the ones when you realize the guy you shared your last can of beans with isn't coming back. You'd think, in a place as cramped and crowded as the tunnels, it would be hard to lose someone. But that's just another of the city's little jokes. There's always someone vanishing, sometimes into thin air, sometimes into the vague promise of a better life above ground, and sometimes into the sort of darkness you can't light up with a stolen flashlight or a single candle stub. At first, you don't notice. People come and go all the time. Maybe they moved to a warmer tunnel, scored a spot at a shelter, or just needed a break from Cheddar Bob's opinions about government cheese. The community adapts. Someone else takes the corner by the steam vent, someone else claims the spot behind the vending machine, and everyone quietly pretends they never cared in the first place. Survival means keeping your circle small and your heart even smaller. But then, There are the absences that linger. The guy who always told the worst jokes, whose laugh was louder than the trains. The woman who braided her hair with thread pulled from old blankets. The kid with the tattered army jacket, who drew chalk stars on the tunnel walls. Suddenly, the echoes sound different. The laughter fades faster. It's not just someone missing, it's the rhythm of the place that's changed, and everyone feels it. You start to wonder what happened. Did they get clean, make it to rehab, get reunited with family? Did they find a bed in a church basement, or a job that led them out of the tunnels for good? Hope comes easy at first, but with each passing night, it's harder to keep pretending. The truth is, most of the time, you never find out. People vanish, and the city just keeps rumbling along above your head, unconcerned. The worst nights are when the rumors start. Somebody says they saw a body pulled from the tracks 2 stops over. Someone else mentions a fight gone wrong, a bad batch, a deal that ended with sirens instead of smiles. The tunnel network is built on stories and silence. Both spread fast, and both can break your heart. You try not to let it show, but there's always that ache, a little raw spot inside that doesn't heal, no matter how many times you tell yourself you're tough enough. Every so often, you do see a familiar face above ground, maybe at a soup kitchen, maybe waiting for a bus, maybe just passing by, eyes locked on something far away. There's an awkward nod, a ghost of a smile, and then you both keep moving, too embarrassed or too proud to admit you remember the nights huddled together, talking nonsense just to keep fear at bay. Maybe they made it. Maybe you will too. But down here, no one bets on happy endings. You try to honor the friends you lose. Maybe you leave a candle burning in their old spot, or scrawl their name on a tunnel wall, or just share their story the next time someone finds a half-empty bottle and a reason to talk. It's not much, but it's all you can do. Because forgetting feels like a kind of betrayal, and remembering feels like carrying a weight you can't put down. Loss becomes routine, but it never gets easier. You mourn in the only way you can, quietly, privately, in between the laughter and the endless tunnel hustle. The community closes ranks, and the world above keeps turning. But down here, every absence leaves a mark, a chill that the steam pipes can't quite chase away. And so you keep going. You tell yourself you're not getting attached, but every night you hope the faces you care about will still be there in the morning, because losing friends is the real tunnel toll, and it costs more than anything else in this underground world. Every tunnel dweller thinks about getting out. Some even try. Maybe you make it to a rehab center, or maybe you just make it through another day without freezing to death. Hope is rationed, but it's never completely gone, not even in the dark. Hope in the tunnels is a strange thing. It doesn't arrive in shining armor or as a blinding light at the end of the station. Down here, hope shows up wearing 3 pairs of socks and a cracked tooth, limping a little, never making direct eye contact. But it's still there, stubborn as a rat in a sandwich bag. Every morning, there's a flicker. Maybe today's the day something changes. Maybe you'll find a sign, or a friend, or just the nerve to make a call you've been putting off since last winter. Rock bottom, of course, is a recurring destination. It's not the lowest place you can fall, just the most familiar. Maybe it's the morning you wake up so cold your joints barely work. Maybe it's the night you trade your last blanket for a fix, and then realize you've miscalculated the wind chill in the northbound tunnel. Sometimes, it's as simple as staring at your own reflection in a train window, thin, smudged, and just a little surprised to still be alive. But the thing about hitting bottom is that you can always bounce, if only a little. People try. You see it in the way someone finally scrapes together enough courage, or shame, to walk into a shelter, to call their sister, to stand in line for hours at a clinic. The bravest are the ones who try over and over, counting each attempt not as a failure, but as another lap around the track. Everyone talks about willpower, but really it's stubbornness, a refusal to accept that this is all there is. Some tunnel dwellers actually make it out. You hear stories. So-and-so got clean, got a job, moved upstate. You want to believe them, even when the cynic in you rolls their eyes. Occasionally, you spot a familiar face above ground, cleaner, a little rounder, with eyes that dart to the sidewalk whenever they see someone from their old life. You try not to resent them. After all, they're proof it can be done. Most of the time, though, hope looks like something smaller, a new pair of socks, a hot meal from a stranger, the first genuinely warm day of spring. It's the feeling you get when the subway musicians play your favorite song in the station above, or when you laugh so hard at Tunnel Elvis's latest joke, you forget, for a second, that you're even in the tunnels at all. It's the taste of a fresh donut, the smell of rain after months of dust, the sound of someone calling your name, your real name, the one you don't hear often anymore. Of course, hope is fragile. There are days it slips away, washed out by disappointment, hunger, or the sheer weight of being tired all the time. That's when the darkness feels deepest, and the idea of ever getting out seems laughable. But even then, it's never quite gone. It hides in the cracks, the way light finds its way through subway grates and down to where you're sleeping. You learn to look for it, the glint in someone's eye, the strength in your own hands, the memories of better times and the possibility, no matter how remote, that you'll find your way back. Rock bottom is a place, but it's not the end. In the tunnels, it's just another stop on the line, a place you pass through on the way to somewhere else. You may not know where you're going, but you keep moving, one day at a time, trading stories and warmth, holding on to the stubborn, ridiculous, glorious hope that tomorrow might actually be different. Because if hope can survive in the tunnels, ragged, patched together, and running on nothing but sheer will, it can survive anywhere, even in you. Every community has its legends. Down here, it's less about haunted houses and more about the ghost of a subway worker who supposedly still sweeps the tracks, a rat the size of a poodle, and, of course, the mythical alligator lurking somewhere around Canal Street. Is any of it true? Who knows? But it passes the time between trains. And sometimes it's nice to blame missing shoes on supernatural causes instead of Cheddar Bob. Storytelling is survival in the tunnels. When the nights stretch out long and the trains stop running, you huddle together for warmth and for distraction. Ghost stories and wild rumors swirl in the damp air, echoing off tile walls and half-broken signs. Above ground, people swap news about politics and baseball. Down here, the conversation is more, let's say, specialized. The most famous is the ghost of Old Joe. Nobody's sure exactly when he worked for the MTA. Some say the 50s. Others swear they saw him just last week, sweeping the tracks with a broom made of wire and stubbornness. Supposedly, if you see Old Joe's ghost, it means you're in for good luck. Or bad luck. Or possibly just hallucinating from too much tunnel dust and not enough food. Either way, if something strange happens, a flashlight that won't turn off, a rat that suddenly borrows your last slice of bread, Old Joe gets the blame. Then there's the matter of the giant rat. Not your standard subway variety, but a monster the size of a medium dog with a taste for discarded cheeseburgers and old socks. Some claim to have seen its glowing eyes watching from the dark, judging your cardboard nest with the disdain only a super rat could muster. Others say it's just three normal rats standing on each other's shoulders under a trench coat. Regardless, the big rat is a convenient scapegoat for any food that disappears overnight, or for that suspicious nibble in your favorite jacket. And who could forget the infamous alligator? Every city kid grows up hearing about the beast in the sewers, but tunnel lore insists there's a real one, slinking around Canal Street, waiting to snap up the unwary. Some folks get creative. They swear they've seen its tail slither past a pile of old newspapers or heard a hiss in the pipes that didn't sound like steam. Is it possible? In the tunnels, anything's possible. The alligator's been blamed for everything from lost shoes to missing sandwiches to that one mysterious puddle that nobody will step in, just in case. Of course, graffiti is its own language of legends. Some tags have been around so long, no one remembers who painted them. The stories grow. This tag marks the spot where someone escaped a police raid. That mural is a map to a hidden warm vent. Another warns about a particularly aggressive group of raccoons with a grudge. Reading the walls is like skimming the subway's secret newspaper, part directions, part art, and all rumor. Not all legends are scary. There's talk of a tunnel angel, a mysterious stranger who supposedly leaves cans of soup or warm socks for those in need. Some say it's just a kind-hearted commuter. Others believe it's the spirit of someone who never made it out. Nobody's ever caught the angel in the act. But that doesn't stop people from looking, or from spreading a little extra kindness. Just in case. Deep down, everyone knows these stories are more about hope and humor than truth. They make the nights a little warmer, the dangers a little less sharp, and the missing shoes a little easier to explain. If nothing else, they remind you that even in the city's forgotten corners, the human urge to tell tales and to believe in something wild never goes away. Because down here, in the dark and the dust, sometimes you need a monster or a miracle to believe in. Especially when Cheddar Bob's nowhere to be found and your shoes are missing. Again, information is power, even in the dark. Tunnel dwellers treasure anything to read. Last week's New York Post, a torn-up romance novel, a comic book missing half its pages. These fragments become the tunnel library, swapped around and read by flashlight, with debates about whether Batman could survive 3 nights down here. Spoiler, probably not. Reading material is a rare currency in the tunnels. If you come across a magazine, even one so old it still features disco as the next big thing, you guard it like treasure. Newspapers make the rounds, their headlines evolving into communal memory, an ancient sports score here, a faded classified ad there. Nobody really cares about the news anymore. What matters is having something to distract your mind, even if it's just a horoscope warning you to avoid major financial decisions. As if the romance novel is a prized possession. It's been read so many times, the cover's gone, and everyone knows by heart who gets the happy ending. That doesn't stop people from arguing about the best love scene or which character had the most sense. Plot holes are patched together by collective imagination. When you're sharing a blanket with 4 strangers, nothing beats a little literary escapism, especially when there's kissing, castles, or a villain so cartoonish you wish he'd visit the tunnels and sort out Cheddar Bob once and for all. Comic books, even the battered, half-missing ones, are hot commodities. Nothing like the bright, impossible world of superheroes to make you forget about your own superpower. Surviving another day on cold concrete. Tunnel Elvis swears he could outwit the Joker. But everyone agrees Batman would tap out before sunrise. After all, the Batcave has Wi-Fi, Alfred, and hot showers. All you've got is a flashlight that works when you hit it, and a rat that keeps stealing your bookmarks. Sometimes, people get creative and start writing their own stories. A stub of pencil, a blank section of wall, and suddenly there's a new saga underway. The Legend of the Three, Sockman, The Ballad of the Lost Metro Card, The Epic of Blanket Mountain. These tales become part of the tunnel library too, retold and embroidered with each telling. Until nobody's sure what's real and what's invention, it doesn't matter. In the absence of facts, myth fills the gap. Debates spring up in the makeshift library's glow. Is it better to read by candlelight, romantic but risky, or flashlight, practical but battery-hungry? Should comics be traded for food, or are they priceless artifacts? Did someone actually find a real dictionary? And if so, can they please settle the argument over whether Rat King is a real word? It's like a college seminar. But the dress code is layered and desperate, and the tuition is paid in granola bars. Not all wisdom comes from books, though. There's the tunnel oracle, usually the oldest dweller, who claims to have read everything and lived twice as much. People consult the oracle for advice, a bedtime story, or just a good joke. Sometimes, all you need to hear is, "You're not the first to end up down here, and you won't be the last." It's comforting in a way the best thriller novel can never be. New arrivals are initiated by being handed the latest issue of the Tunnel's unofficial newsletter, 3 pages long, hand-lettered, mostly rumors, recipes for stone soup, and sarcastic editorials about the MTA. It's not exactly Pulitzer-winning journalism, but it's a link to the community, a reminder that you're not alone in the dark. In a world stripped of comfort, the Tunnel Library is warmth for the mind. A few borrowed pages, a shared laugh over a misprinted headline, the thrill of a plot twist. Even the smallest stories can keep you going when hope is thin, because sometimes surviving is just about believing you're part of a story that isn't over yet. Who says there's no innovation underground? Down here, the business world is alive and questionable. There's the guy selling genuine vintage tokens, the woman who can make a wallet out of duct tape and a dream, and the pair running the mysterious Subway Soup Club. Membership not recommended. Every day is Shark Tank, except the sharks have fleas, and the investment is usually a can of beans. Entrepreneurial spirit doesn't die below street level. If anything, it gets more creative and a lot more morally flexible. In a place where comfort is rare and boredom is constant, people are always looking for a hustle, a scheme, or at least a way to turn last week's trash into this week's limited edition collectible. You haven't really lived in the tunnels until you've been pitched on a business venture involving nothing but cardboard, hope, and a suspicious amount of optimism. Let's start with the classics. Vintage subway tokens. They show up whenever there's a fresh crop of commuters or tourists above ground. Never mind that most of these antiques are just washers, buttons, or coins that have survived a few too many trips through the tunnels. For $5, you can own a piece of New York history, or, as Cheddar Bob calls it, the city's original cryptocurrency. Every once in a while, someone actually finds a real token. And that's cause for a minor economic boom, which means you might trade it for 2 whole cups of soup instead of 1. Then there's the crafts industry. Forget Etsy. Down here, it's all about found object art and the miracles of duct tape. Need a wallet? A phone case? A hat that looks suspiciously like it started life as a lunch bag? There's someone who can make it, sell it, and convince you it's high fashion. All in less time than it takes the downtown 6 to clear the station. Custom jobs welcome, and payment plans accepted, as long as you don't mind the interest being charged in cigarettes or ramen noodles. Services are big too. One guy offers security consulting, which is just a fancy way of saying he'll watch your stuff for a small fee, and then maybe watch someone else's if they pay more. Another provides rat relocation, promising to scare away your least favorite tunnel residents. No guarantees, but he does carry a big stick and a convincing rat costume. If you need entertainment, Tunnel Elvis can be hired for birthdays, anniversaries, or just Tuesday blues, provided you cough up the going rate in Twinkies or stories he hasn't heard yet. But the most legendary venture is the Subway Soup Club. The rules are simple. Everyone chips in whatever they have. Old beans, a can of mystery meat, a handful of ketchup packets. The chef combines it all in a battered pot over a flickering candle. The result is unpredictable. Sometimes it's edible, sometimes it's not. Club membership includes a commemorative spoon, usually plastic, and a chance to win Chef's Choice, a dubious honor at best. Still, when it's cold, even questionable soup tastes like hope. Of course, not every scheme is above board. There's always someone pushing a miracle cure for tunnel colds, usually just salt water and bravado. Another guy is rumored to run an underground lottery. Winner takes all, but nobody's ever seen a winner. The most infamous scam involved someone selling VIP access to a warm, secret tunnel that turned out to be the left side of a drafty stairwell. Refunds not included. Still, the spirit is admirable. Down here, business isn't about getting rich, it's about survival, distraction, and the belief that you can always make something out of nothing. The investment isn't just beans or cigarettes, it's hope, hustle, and the kind of ingenuity that only comes from living at the city's edge. And if you get scammed, well, at least you've got a good story for the next Subway Soup Club meeting. So tonight, as you settle into your bed, a real bed, not a pile of damp cardboard guarded by the world's boldest rats, maybe take a slow breath and thank the universe for hot water, central heating, and a bathroom that doesn't require dodging express trains. Because the tunnel life was brutal, ugly, and, let's be honest, more than a little bit ridiculous. It was a world where survival meant bartering a single sock for a slice of pizza crust, where hope was measured in spare change and stolen blankets, and where even the rats sometimes seemed to have better life insurance. Every day, the people down there found ways to keep going, making families out of strangers, building empires out of trash piles, and laughing in the dark just to prove they still could. If there's anything to take from these subway odysseys, it's that humans are stubborn, creative, and, above all, deeply weird. No matter how far we fall, we invent a new kind of dignity, even if it's just spray painting your name on a tunnel wall or arguing about disco with a talking pigeon. So, tonight, while you lie in your clean sheets and listen to the soft hum of your fan, not the shriek of the downtown six, remember this. History is built on people who refuse to give up, even when they probably should have. Be grateful for the comforts you have, laugh at the absurdity you don't, and know that, even on the darkest nights, someone somewhere is finding a way to survive, to joke, and to keep hoping for daylight. Rest easy, friends. You made it through another night. Above ground. Sleep well,